I think it's 5 years that we've been doing this, and it's the fabric of our lives now. And the way that we talk to each other and feel about each other, like our real world lives influence the story some, and the story bounces back some. And I just want us to have an ending as beautiful as the road it took to get there. And that can be multiple things.
What is it about Critical Role that makes it such a mainstay in the D&D community? Even if you don't watch the show or follow any of the players online, if you're part of the online D&D community, there is a good chance you've at least heard about the show multiple times. And even if you haven't, there's definitely been a scenario where you've been straight up subjected to the literal truckloads of content there is out there from their incredibly passionate fan base, of which I am a part. It is literally impossible to ignore the effect the show has had on the current state of D&D 5th edition, and to the future of what D&D is becoming as a whole. After all, one of the official source books was made to be set in the main homebrew campaign setting of Critical Role's DM, Matthew Mercer, and it had his direct involvement in a huge portion of its creation. So all of this begs the question, why is it such a big name? Is it the high production value, the cast of all-star voice actors and mainstays in the industry, the amazing DM who was and is so influential, he had an entire phenomenon named after him in the Matthew Mercer effect? Well, honestly, that's definitely a part of what hooks viewers, but I don't think it's why they stay. I want to talk about Critical Role, so let's talk about that.
And I started talking about the game, mentioning, and because I guess they heard about the game, they knew that I run it, they didn't know who all was in the game, and they're like, yeah, like we're really trying to get the D&D crowd. Like right now we have our show Spooks, and like, you know, one of the guys in the crew one of the cast keeps talking about how he keeps trying to get one of our other castmates, Ashley, to get into her D&D game, and I'm like, Ashley Johnson, yeah, I know, she's in the game. They're like, oh, I'm like, and Sam Eagle, I worked on Fetch Fest with you guys. Like, oh, so you're keeping it in the family. Yeah. So
that's great. Yeah.
So I want to make sure you guys would be interested in that kind of a thing.
Hell no. Hell no.
We would have to change the name from the Shits to something else. No,
I think that has to stay.
No deal. Do we have to start over at level 1 again or anything?
No.
Okay.
Like the thing is, we a couple things I got pitched was either we could do a different game, but I want to maintain what we have.
Yeah.
I want to just be a continuation. What we do is we have a website with, you know, bios on each of us as players and each of our characters' back history with like artwork and stuff, so people can tune in and know exactly where the characters have been and jump into wherever we're at.
Fucking best thing we ever did. Best thing we ever did.
For those of you who are still wondering exactly what Critical Role is, it's a D&D game that started as a simple home game between a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors, and they began to stream their sessions through Geek and Sundry on March 12, 2015. The game had actually been going on for some time before that, and it was set in a world homebrewed by Matthew Mercer under the name of Exandria. When the stream started, it was quite literally just the entire crew picking up their game in the middle of what they were doing, with only a few sound bites of backstory dialogue to clue in the audience of what had happened in the adventure so far. And that was it. When Critical Role first began, no one in the cast was really taking it all that seriously. All of the players were pretty excited about the idea, but there have been quite a few times where some of the players have mentioned that they chose to do so for the fun of the idea, to try out streaming for a little bit and see if it could be something fun that they could do, and then eventually go back to playing their game at home instead of on stream.
The reason that I eventually was like, sure, let's do it, was we 100% said, nobody's gonna watch this.
Everyone thought it would fail. It was like, we'll do it for 4 weeks, and then, okay,
4 weeks.
We did a thing.
We'll do it for 4 hours.
And
we'll never, they'll be like, thanks, that was awesome. 12 people loved it.
Right.
You know, we got to do some other stuff. And the true sweat, the like cold sweat was when like, you know, a few thousand people watched the first time. We were like, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Everyone's eating chips loudly into the microphones. You're on the set of a child's bedroom.
I mean, I still like pick food out of my teeth, but I was definitely doing it in that first episode. You know, Laura's like, you are on camera. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I still just like, dig in, you know, like.
Yeah.
They were excited to share their game, absolutely, but they didn't expect anyone to actually sit down for hours at a time and watch them be giant nerds in a game that the audience didn't care about. However, as of now, the original VOD of their very first episode remains up on the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel, and at the time of recording this video, it has 16 million views. So it suffices to say that people were willing to watch them play Dungeons & Dragons for hours at a time. Now, as someone who's watched the first episode quite a few times, I'm going to share an opinion here. The first episode of Campaign 1 is... well, it's not good. It's got some major audio issues, a whole host of events where the players are really just not mindful of their microphones, and some real lack of context that makes it incredibly obvious they really didn't want to try and explain what was going on to the viewership all that much. And let me make it clear, that's not a bash on the cast. Like I said, they didn't expect to have viewers. And it's this very attitude that I think helped set them apart and drew so many people in. They weren't just streaming a Dungeons & Dragons game for entertainment. They were playing Dungeons & Dragons and inviting others to have fun with them. If you watch any of their interviews where they talk about first being approached to stream their game, they often repeat the same sentiment time and time again. This game was something special to them, and they were not going to sacrifice the feeling of experiencing something so special in order to gain popularity online.
What I'm interested in is, what were you the most afraid of at the idea of streaming the game? Putting cameras on it and everything, what were you most afraid of?
I was
trepidatious.
I was most afraid of two things. The biggest thing I was afraid of was it changing our game. Because what we had in this weird little box of perfectly contained, private, creative friendship was so important to all of us. If that was going to be soured by this transition, it was not about to let that happen. You know, you say it wasn't about the money. There was no money.
There was no money.
You know, it was literally just throw it online, see what happens, see if it sticks in the wall. And we're like, this seems like an opportunity to fuck up something that's really important to us for no reason.
So, yes, the first few sessions of the campaign are really not fun to listen to, at least in my humble opinion, but I think it really speaks to the draw of what would eventually grow the Critical Role community into the monolith of creative superpower that it's become today. Despite the issues and glaring flaws, people saw something underneath this stupid Dungeons & Dragons game. What they saw was, well, a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors playing D&D. Friends, good friends, that were just having fun and weren't afraid to look stupid. From here on, Critical Role would grow into something much larger than itself. While it started as a simple streamed show on the Geek and Sundry channel, it has now become its own full-blown company, including multiple different shows of a wildly diverse content, hundreds of hours of their first and second Critical Role campaign, their very own charity in the form of the Critical Role Foundation, a publishing company in the form of Darrington Press, a hub for their community to continue to expand and give light to their incredibly talented artists and content creators. They worked hand in hand with Wizards of the Coast themselves to create a sourcebook based in their very own world, and they're still working on an animated TV show in production with Amazon Prime, which will be coming out soon. And there's still plenty that they're continuing to work and expand on. Truthfully, the growth and amazing progress they've made should be highlighted more often, because it's a legit work of art what they've managed to accomplish with what they started with. They've done so much to improve the community and grow the understanding of what Dungeons & Dragons can be. But, unfortunately, with a lot of success comes a lot of critiques. As Critical Role began to rise in popularity, they began to come under quite a bit of scrutiny. Specifically, people began to criticize whether it was a healthy and realistic look at what a Dungeons & Dragons game could look like. As I mentioned prior in the video, the Matthew Mercer effect became a hot-button topic in the Dungeons & Dragons community for some time, and even still it will pop its head up in debates and discussion to this day. For anyone wondering, the Matthew Mercer effect is essentially the name that was addressed to the phenomenon of players comparing their DM's work to that of Matthew Mercer's, and by thus doing so creating unrealistic expectations for what their home game should look like. Honestly, the conversation on this phenomenon has been discussed plenty by people far smarter and more informed than me, so I'm not going to throw my hat into the ring on this. However, I am bringing this up because I legitimately believe the Matthew Mercer effect, which by the way from here on is going to be referred to as the MME because I cannot keep saying that, was what sparked my understanding of what made Critical Role so special to me and so many other people. The MME caused me to realize how much Matt, and subsequently the other players, cared about their game. They put so much heart, emotion, and feeling into it that many people began to declare that their game was simply unrealistic. But I just don't believe that's true. I think Critical Role is something that can be attained at many tables. Sure, we can't all have the incredible acting experience and the unmatched voice acting prowess that they all do, and very few of us have the money to buy the incredible minis, battlefields, and art that they produce on such a regular basis. But that doesn't stop us from being able to imitate the true core of Critical Role. And that's the heart of it all. I've played Dungeons & Dragons for a while, and I distinctly remember a time where I connected with a coworker of mine who also enjoyed playing Dungeons & Dragons, and we started talking about our mutual love of Critical Role. Soon, they let me know that they were going to be DMing a game for their wife and some friends, and he asked if I wanted to join in. Of Of course, I was ecstatic and said yes with little hesitation, and he told me he had been going and planning these things for months, and Matthew Mercer was his idol, and he was going to do everything he could to run a game just like his. And you know what? He didn't do bad. He had awesome set pieces, amazing in-depth lore, and well-practiced character voices. I was legitimately impressed by the things that he did. By all accounts, he had achieved his goal of Matthew Mercer level DMing. And despite that, the game lasted 3 sessions. And Chris, I mean absolutely no offense to you if you ever see this video, but they were some of the single most boring sessions I've ever played in. He had nailed down everything most people attribute to being part of the Matthew Mercer effect, but he had missed the single most crucial thing that Matt and his players have done so well to attract millions of viewers over the course of their now 2 complete campaigns. And what is it that they've done exactly? Well, I don't exactly have a word for it, but I'll try to summarize it as well as I can. Their game has soul.
It really is, and that's why I love being the GM. You know, the DM. For me, it's a gift. Like it's in my small way that I can say thank you for putting your time into this. Thank you for putting your interest in whatever I'm capable of doing, and being respectful of this thing that we're doing together. Let me try and provide something that's long lasting and important to you. And that to me is a very deeply, like, soulfully fulfilling experience.
These people care for each other. They care for each other in ways that it is truly hard to describe, and honestly, given the fact that they grew up in a world where many times the amount of emotional vulnerability they put on display was discounted or discouraged, it's amazing. And of course, that's one thing. But what makes the group of people so special is that they're not just vulnerable, they share in their vulnerability with their audience. I'll go ahead and warn you that the following scene I'm about to display is somewhat spoiler heavy for Campaign 1. If you care about spoilers, please go ahead and skip to the timestamp on the screen now. But I'll show this as an example.
I think it's bad that she thinks that I'm an oath breaker, that I am weak, that I failed in my promise to her.
Scanlan.
That everything she thought of me when she found me is confirmed now, that I can't be trusted and I can't protect her. And I don't have anything that cares about me.
That's a lie.
That is bullshit.
It's definitely
Full
untrue.
bullshit. What? You think you care about me?
Yeah.
Yes, asshole, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, you're right. You like me because I make jokes and I play songs and I give you a warm place to stay at night and I feed you fucking chicken and I heal you in battle. But you don't really care about me. Come on. Let's be honest with each other. You don't really give a shit about me,
I've
do you?
changed my outlook on life because of you. What the fuck are you talking about? Of course we all love you. You could crush me.
Prove it.
In a second.
Prove it.
How?
What do you want us to do?
We traveled into the fucking 9 hells to get Pike a suit of armor. We went and battled a city of vampires so Percy could feel good about his name. We fought Goliaths for grog. We've traveled across planes of existence so you could fix your fucking daddy issues. But you've never done anything for me. Ever. You've never risked anything. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. What's my mother's name? What's her name? Easy question. Died in front of me. Killed by a goblin. Biggest part of my life. What's her name? My father. Is he alive or dead? How old am I? Where's my fucking dog?
Did you notice something? That scene wasn't just acting. Sure, Sam was not actually mad at his fellow tablemates, and no, he didn't actually believe the things he said. But as I'm sure many of us did when this scene came up, I could not help but relate with Sam in a visceral way. Those were real emotions, real thoughts. He didn't just conjure them up from nowhere. He may have said it in an interview at some point, I'm not sure, but I would legitimately bet money that those lines came from a place of deep insecurity. I'm pretty certain that Sam has those thoughts and has fought against them and through them for some time. He was vulnerable, and as such, he allowed us to share in that vulnerability with him. And they're not the only ones to do this. In fact, any popular D&D podcast is most likely rich in these emotional, vulnerable moments. It's why we all love playing these tabletop roleplay games. But Critical Role was one of the first to truly lay it on the line and be vulnerable to show everyone else that it could be done. And that takes guts. To be vulnerable is to leave yourself open to a gut punch. And let me tell you, they've taken some punches in stride. Critical Role has received hate, flack, and straight-up abuse from some people simply because they choose to allow themselves to feel emotions and share those emotions with others. There are countless times where Marisha stayed true to her character and allowed her to be vulnerable, and she was attacked for it because people didn't believe Keyleth was a realistic character. But I disagree. I think Keyleth was one of the most realistic. And even when people continued to attack her because they believed she was a Mary Sue or trying too hard, Marisha continued to be vulnerable. And while she did not receive any thanks for that for a long time, when Campaign 2 came around and she was able to show her acting chops by playing a totally different character, suddenly people were able to truly experience and appreciate what Keyleth was. And that was because she persisted through it. And they keep doing this too. They keep being vulnerable. So, back to my friend Chris and the boring campaign. Why did I feel it failed? Because there was no vulnerability or honesty. It was just a bunch of strangers who made characters totally outside of one another and really just didn't know each other. Which is fine. You can push past that and make an amazing campaign, no doubt. I have played with strangers and we have had some of the best games. But it takes going forward and being vulnerable with each other despite that. And unfortunately nobody in that group wanted to. So, the campaign fizzled. Dungeons & Dragons looks like paper and dice. But Critical Role shook up the scene by showing its fanbase that there was more than just the numbers on a page. There was heart, vulnerability, strength, and change that could be had through it, and that's something absolutely incredible. I think a lot of us accept that that's what Dungeons & Dragons is these days, but Critical Role was the one who helped people see that for the most part. A lot of people didn't know that beforehand. The heart of the show and what makes it so special is the people who play in it and care about the community more so than anything else. And that's what makes it something worth fighting for. Through the hate, resentment, and unfair treatment that they receive, Critical Role gets to see the good. And they cling tight to it. Critical Role is special because it trailblazes vulnerability and passion. I can't speak enough on how much the show has meant to me personally. These nerdy-ass voice actors who I have never met have been there for me in some of the lowest moments of my life. They've given me strength by showing an emotional vulnerability I found myself unable to give, and they proved to me that it's possible. If they can do it on stream with that many viewers, I can do it for the few people around me who I care deeply about. Critical Role is special because they care. They consistently give to the community in every way that they can, and they constantly show that they are only humans. But they are humans who are doing their absolute damnedest to prove to the world that they can make a difference. It's that creativity, passion, drive, and care that makes so many people continue to want to return back every Thursday to watch their stupid shenanigans. Because they remind us to not forget to love each other. These past several years have been crazy, and it would have been so easy to just use Critical Role as an escape from that. But instead, they chose to make it a safe place where they showed everyone what they thought we could be doing better. That's the most inspiring shit I've ever seen. The chances of any of them seeing this video is basically zero, and I'm entirely okay with that. But on the off chance that Matt, Taliesin, Marisha, Travis, Sam, Liam, or Ashley ever see this, thank you. Thank you for choosing to be a light and refusing to give up on people. It's impossibly valuable to have role models like you. So at the end of the day, Critical Role isn't just some stream that got popular. It's not just another game to go through. And should everybody watch it? I don't think so. There's so many hours of content, some people just don't have that time. But I do think it's important to take a lesson from it. You can have Critical Role at your table, but it takes something more than just a special D&D game. It takes a special group of people and people who want to try and be there for each other and be vulnerable and to be safe with each other. Please don't take this as just a reason to go out with a bunch of random strangers and try to allow yourself to be vulnerable. That can end badly, but do take it as a chance to allow yourself to be open and find connections with other people. Dungeons & Dragons is a fun game, but what's more, it's a way to be able to connect with people on levels you never thought possible. So thank you, Critical Role, for teaching us all this lesson. And as Campaign 2 has come to a close and you guys began to go for Campaign 3, please take care of yourselves. And don't stop being you. Always be those nerdy-ass voice actors playing Dungeons & Dragons, whether we get to see it or not. Keep being amazing.